joined now by our White House correspondent, Kristen Welker. So the view from the White House is nothing to see here. It's a big yawn. But there is this new piece of evidence that more directly ties President Trump, if you believe it, to this scheme to withhold military aid in exchange for investigations.
That's right, Savannah. And that revelation about that phone call caught a lot of White House officials off guard. And they acknowledge it's the wild card, even though they're trying to paint yesterday as a quote unquote nothing burger. You're hearing that from aides and allies inside and outside the White House. The reality is they're going to be holding their breath a little bit until Gordon Sondland testifies. President Trump, by the way, trying to say, oh, I didn't watch the hearings. I heard there was nothing to them. He's trying to take a page from the Bill Clinton playbook and look presidential. He had that joint news conference yesterday with the president of Turkey, for example. He's going to be on the road tonight in Louisiana. So we're also watching his Twitter feed, though, because that doesn't stop. He's been tweeting about this as well. On the other hand, this new piece of evidence, which has to do with a State Department employee saying he overheard President Trump on the phone with Gordon Sondland, the EU ambassador, and asking about investigations. How far does that really get you? Because you have a White House transcript of the call from the day before that's not disputed, that shows the president asking about investigations. So does this really add much to it? Well, it does a couple of things. It bolsters that point, certainly. It also allows Republicans to make the case that a lot of what you're hearing from these witnesses is secondhand information. And so that is why the Gordon Sondland testimony is going to be so key. That's why this broader picture that is being laid out by all of these witnesses, Savannah, is key about this secondhand foreign policy channel. All right. Kristen, thank you so much. And we turn now to this major shakeup breaking just this morning in the Democratic presidential race. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick has officially entered the Democratic race for president. He announced the bid this morning in a Facebook post following days of speculation that, yes, he may run. As you know, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is also a possible late entry into the field. Last week, he filed the paperwork required for the Democratic primaries in Alabama and Arkansas. And this is all coming on the heels of a radio interview recently with Hillary Clinton, where she was asked if she has ruled out a possible run of her own, and here was the answer.
Look, as I say, never say never. And I will certainly tell you I'm under enormous pressure from many, many, many people to think about it. But as of this moment, sitting here in this studio talking to you, that is absolutely not in my plans. Joining us now is NBC News political analyst, former Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, heads exploding everywhere. This is the time, almost 3 months till folks vote, where people are usually dropping out of the race, not dropping into it. What does this turbulence mean?
You know, it is an unusual year. This is very late for candidates to get in. Now, Bloomberg has something going for him, lots of money. Deval Patrick has something going for him. He hangs out right next to New Hampshire. That's where his base is. So not great news for Elizabeth Warren. And some might say not great news for Joe Biden, because he might both of them will try to grab some of that center lane. But it's going to make it interesting all the way to the end of the early primaries.
Well, it's interesting because, number one, there's the question of can they pull it off? And you mentioned, well, okay, Deval Patrick close to New Hampshire, maybe he'll have a little edge there. Bloomberg's got the money. But the other question is, what does it say that there are these candidates who are looking at a very already crowded Democratic field and saying, this doesn't look good. I don't like this. I'm going to go ahead and stick my head in here.
You know, Savannah, we're going to have 10 candidates on the debate stage next week. We still have 10. So when you're looking at 10 candidates that are still debating on national television, you think, well, what's another one or two?
Right.
It's not like we have narrowed the field in terms of exposure for these candidates to the top four, although there could be an argument for that, because there's only 4 candidates that have remained at the top tier, and that is, of course, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who's surging, Joe Biden, who showed remarkable resilience, and, of course, the favorites of the progressive left, both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
You said this could be potentially bad news for Senator Warren. Isn't it also bad news for Joe Biden if somebody like Hillary Clinton, Michael Bloomberg, and Deval Patrick, all considered moderates, centrists, I think, if they see a path and they think they got to get in there, isn't that kind of a vote of no confidence in Biden?
Well, he's been getting lots of votes of no confidence by people who talk about politics. But if you look at his polling, while he has not stayed at the very tippy top like he was at the beginning, primarily because of name recognition. He's still, I mean, just a poll a few days ago had him #1 in New Hampshire.
You said something interesting to me a couple minutes ago as before we got to go, but you think this could go all the way to the convention? Like maybe this candidate gets nominated at the convention.
This might be one of those races, especially with Steyer money and Bloomberg money, where there is competitive primaries all the way into late spring. And with everybody taking a share of the votes, you could see 2 or 3 candidates viable going into the convention, which this time is in July.
Wow, it's going to be interesting. Senator McCaskill, always good to have you here.
Bet.
Thank you so much.